Welcome to the Tea of Life podcast, where our mission is to transform every attitude of life by encouraging and equipping you to live the life you love and love the life you live. I am your host, Tiffany Thompson. So today I'm having a conversation with my friend Jennifer Langley, and it's a Skype conversation. So we are actually in two different states, but she had actually posted something on her Facebook feed that really caught my attention, and I really felt like we needed to get this information out there about keeping our children safe from child predators. So I invited her in, and we have actually tried this conversation. This is the third recording that we have done. And the first two did not turn out at all, and this one barely turned out. Thankfully, my husband was able to come in and kind of help me out at the end, but I apologize right now for the sound. I know I've been doing this for a year and a half now. You would think that I would have all this down, but I don't. So there is a little bit of clipping, a little bit of sound distortion, but I think that you can still hear the conversation very well, very much get the information that you need. Pull out a piece of paper and a pen, sit down and take some notes, because this information is something that you need to have and you need to pass on to your children and your friends and their children and their friends and their children. So sit back and enjoy our conversation today. Thank you for listening. All right, so today on the podcast, I have Jennifer Langley, and Jennifer and I have been friends for countless years. I actually don't even know that I can go back that far to figure out when exactly I met you. But it's been quite some time, and she actually had a post on her Facebook page not too long ago, just a few weeks ago, that really caught my attention. And she did a Facebook Live video, and I don't typically click on those, so I'm sorry if my friends are listening and they hear that. I'm sorry, but it's just not something that I do. And I had seen hers come across the page, and then I saw it come across the page again. And so at that point, I thought, okay, I'm going to listen. So I clicked on her video, and what she had to say actually really penetrated my heart to the point to where I thought, oh my gosh, we have got to get this information out there to other people. So I contacted Jennifer, and she agreed to share her story on the podcast. And then we were going to talk about a few things regarding her story, but basically it's about keeping our children safe from predators. So Jennifer witnessed something a few weeks ago, and I'm going to go ahead and let her share her story now.
Yeah, and I am not one that usually makes Facebook Live videos ever. Even listening back, I'm like shaking when I made that video, but it was like so important to share what I witnessed. To bring awareness. Basically, I live in a very safe part of town, neighborhood, and I just took my son to a mall, playground, play space, and was just letting him, do his thing, run around like a crazy man. And I started to notice that there was an older man there who did not have children, but was being almost too friendly. Acting to specifically little girls. And I would notice how he would try and get them to come over and say hi and give them a high five. And he kept reaching out to them and just being just super, it just brought attention to him, because that's not something people normally go out of their way to continue to do. And I just noticed he did it only to little girls, which really also brought attention to him. I just thought that's weird. And so I continued to watch him. And then another young mom came into the place with two small children. And I just noticed how he was tracking her and watching her continuously and almost a little bit inappropriately. And she went to go help her son play on the get down the slide safely. And when she did, I noticed he slid over to her stuff, and he started putting his hands in her belongings in her backpack. And I noticed, and I stood up and I said, "Excuse me, that's not yours. Get your hand out of there." And he looked a little bit shocked at me, and then kind of pretended I was crazy to the people around me. And I asked the mom to come over, and I said, "Is this your things? It looks like this man has got some sticky fingers." And at that point, I was like, you know what? That's just too many things going on. And so I went and got security, and I turned over the situation to them at that point.
Wow. So what you're saying is that he felt so comfortable sitting beside you
Hmm.
that he felt like it was okay that he actually go through this girl's backpack with you sitting right there.
Yep. It said he just kind of scooched over, like maybe she won't notice. It was unbelievable. But yeah, right there in front of me.
Wow. So that makes me think that this was not his first rodeo.
Not at all. He must have known. Just wait till she's distracted, like us moms do at play this.
Right.
She was there being, being what she was helping her son on the playground. Something we all do.
Right. So she had multiple children there, and so she wasn't able to pay attention to all of them at the same time.
Mm-mm. No.
Wow. Well, thank goodness you were there to be able to protect that little girl, to be another set of eyes. That is something that we probably all, as moms and dads, need to remember when we go to
Right.
places like that, is that we're not there only to protect our own children. We need to watch out
Right.
for the other kids who are there as well.
Exactly. It's like a community, effort. Honestly, I just did exactly what I would want someone to do for me. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, with this conversation, it triggered a little bit of research. We wanted to figure
Mhm.
out some ways to be able to share with our audience on how to keep children safe from child predators. So, we did a little bit of research online, and it was kind of easy to find, but then again, it wasn't as easy as you think because there were quite a few like news pages that I had gone
Mhm.
to get this information, and they wanted you to subscribe in order to find out how to keep your children safe. And I understand that there's a money making opportunity for them in this with people wanting to subscribe to get their the news feed. But I also
Yeah.
felt like there's some information that needs to just be public on their sites that we may not need to have to subscribe to in order to get this information.
Yeah.
And
I
I
find that
felt, yeah, and I felt
very
like,
easily.
yeah, I felt like keeping children safe is actually one of those
Mhm.
things that we need to know about without having to subscribe to a news channel feed to get this
Right.
information. So if there are any news people out there, y'all need to y'all need, y'all need to take this into account on your news pages online. So one of the
Yeah.
things, yeah. So I did come across another website, the New York Times, of course. They have like all kinds of information there, and they don't actually charge, I don't think, for you to get their information.
Wow.
Um, but there was a psychologist who wrote an article in the New York Times, and what she said was that she noticed that most parents believe that children are safe only when they are in the care of familiar adults. But as a psychologist with an expertise in child abuse, she says, I can tell you that this theory is hogwash. It's exceedingly rare for a child to be taken by a stranger, and in 90% of sexual abuse cases, the perpetrator is someone the kid already knows. Now, I wanted to kind of talk about how you said that the perpetrator that you saw, he was obviously a stranger, but he was making himself known to the kids and the parents. So he was kind of becoming a non stranger
Right.
in that situation.
Yeah. He was trying to. Sorry. He was trying to befriend them by saying. I think at one point I did leave this part out that he kept saying, "I'm nice. I'm nice." And helping these little girls trust him and just give them a high five for going down the slide good or something, and then say, "I'm nice," convincing them that he's a nice person. Like,
Right.
wow.
So he's, not only befriending these kids and making them comfortable, but the parents are probably seeing him and thinking, oh my goodness, that
Hmm.
is the other set of eyes that I need. That man can
Yeah.
help me watch my kids while I'm on the playground with my other kids when
Right.
actually this guy is a predator and he's not anybody safe at all.
Nope. And one of the big clues that I saw was he had no business being in there. There was no I watched him for a while before, and I just noticed there is absolutely no reason for him to be in there. There's no child with him.
Yeah, so he was there without a child.
Correct.
So the thing that just keeps going over and over in my head is the J.C. Dugard case that came out a few years ago. I don't know if you watched that. It was like a 2020 special, and it was about a little girl who had been abducted, and I don't remember how old she was, but she was very young. I want to say, she was preteen. She was very, very young. And she was abducted, and then she was kept away for years, and this man would come in and he would abuse her, sexually abuse her, and she ended up having some of his children, and then later on she was found, and the guy obviously is in prison now, and his wife, because his wife was actually helping him out with these children. And that case just kept going over and over and over in my head as I was hearing the story that you were telling.
Yeah, that's just so sad.
Yeah, because he would also visit playgrounds. There was videos of him actually visiting playgrounds while he had JC locked up at home. He was actually visiting playgrounds for other children.
It's so scary.
Yeah.
It's so scary because I guess I just was thinking this would never happen to me. This would never happen in my neighborhood. And it just blew me away that it happened. Yes, it did. But not only that, it happened right under my nose, like beside me.
Right. So the psychologist from New York Times, she goes on to say that most often someone is either a family member or an acquaintance, such as a coach, a counselor, priest, or a teacher. So ironically, when we put our kids in educational programs and organize sports to keep them safe, we may actually be putting them in more danger than if they were just playing outside with their friends.
It's a false sense of security. So.
Yeah, right. So like I said before, what you were semi-witnessing was the perpetrator was actually befriending the children there, which were mostly girls, I might add, right? He wasn't befriending many of the boys.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I would watch him like my son. I would carefully, just see if my intuition was going in the right direction. And my son would, like, let's say, just fall down right in front of him, and he would like not care at all as I'm watching him really coerce the little girls. And, it's just really crazy.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So there's this thing that it's called grooming, and basically that's what he was doing to these children. And what that means is that he was actually grooming them to actually feel more comfortable with him, and he was going further and further, like with the high fives, and then it may start, and then it may go to a hug or side hug, then it can go to a frontal hug, or maybe, and then the child sitting in his lap, and then it just goes further and further from there. And so this is one way that they inch their way in little by little to see how far that they can go in getting the child more and more comfortable with them until it is gone too far.
Yeah.
So as we were doing research, we found on Huffington Post, they have 5 tips to keep children safe from predators. So I just wanted to go over these 5 tips. And actually, number 1 may be a surprise, because it was a surprise to me. And number 1 is actually don't teach stranger danger. The author of the Huffington Post article says that once a predator introduces himself, he is technically no longer a stranger, and predators always approach a child in friendly ways. Plus, there are times when your child may need to talk to a stranger, especially if they feel threatened in any way. However, we should not point them in the direction of a police officer because, unfortunately, predators have been known to wear uniforms in order to look safe.
Yeah, that is just so unfortunate because that is what, I was taught as a younger child, look for a security officer or a police officer.
Right.
Ask for help.
And I even remember teaching my kids that, look for a uniform. If we're at the zoo, look for a person who's wearing a shirt with the zoo logo on it, or if we're at, wherever, then look for somebody in the uniform. And now I'm thinking, wow, that probably was not the best thing for me to teach my kids.
Yeah. It's super sad.
So, one of the things that they were saying was that you can actually teach your kids to look for other moms. Like in Jennifer's case, she was another mom looking out for the other mom's kids. So if you teach a kid to look for another mom with children, then chances are that is going to be their safe zone. The Huffington Post article number 2, it says, teach your kids that adults don't need help from other kids.
Yeah, I can't believe that is so true. Adult is not gonna roll their window down and say, hey, can you help me, blah, blah, blah. An adult needs to reach out to another adult. That should be a
Right,
sure sign. Something's
right.
off.
And if an adult needs directions, the kid is probably not going to have the directions that the adult needs. And
Gosh.
if adult has quote unquote lost a pet, which is I think one of the things that a lot of predators use, hey, I've lost my pet. Can you come help me? Do you like dogs? And so they're not going to ask another kid to help them look for their pet. They need to call for assistance from another adult or from, a pet foundation or somebody, lostpets.com. I don't know, but they need to not ask a kid for help.
Not at all.
So number 3, it says to have a code word phrase. And the idea of this is that they should know that if you send someone to pick them up from school or any activity, the code word will be used. And this is something that we did with our kids. Thankfully, we never had to use it. But I also think that if it's something that needs to be changed on a regular basis, like if you use it, change it. Kind of like your passwords
Right.
to your computer, which we probably never change those. But,
But only when we have to.
Yeah, but if you use it, change it. Or, maybe if it's been forever since you set the code word, make sure your kids remember the code word. We did this as a kid, and I was actually going over these things with my son yesterday, and we talked about the code word, and he was like, what code word? So
Yeah.
I mean, when he was a kid, he remembered what the code word was, but now that he's older, he didn't remember even having a code word. But maybe it's something that you need to revisit with your kids on a regular basis, or maybe every time they go somewhere, say, hey, you remember the code word, right? Even if it's every day, I'd rather annoy my kid asking them the same question every day than to have to fill out a missing person report.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so number 4, it says to let your child know that it's okay to yell, scream, and say no to an adult if they feel uncomfortable or scared. She says that it's a good idea to practice this with your kids. Give them a scenario and have them practice saying no firmly and loudly, screaming and running away. I was also taught as a kid to go limp because it's virtually impossible for someone to pick you up without others noticing when you have gone completely limp.
I love that tip. That
Yeah.
is huge. I mean, it's difficult. I have a 2-year-old, and if he does the, what do I call it, the drop? Yeah, when you just go limp, it is so incredibly hard for the 2-year-old. So that is such an awesome tip to have in your back pocket. For even as adults.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Try. It would be extremely hard for someone to pick you up.
Right. And it looks, it also looks like something's wrong. So a lot of people are probably going to run to your aid if they think that you've passed out or, something's wrong. So you're going to get more people to surround you at that point as well.
Exactly.
So number 5, it says to be cautious and aware of identifying clothing. Personalized shirts, a team uniform, or clothing from your child's school can provide a potential abductor with valuable information. So if they're able to call your child by name or mention their school or team, they may be able to trick your child into believing that they know them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They can also get super social media so huge right now. They could just find enough information to possibly look up something and know details that would convince the child even further. So don't give the extra help in that area at all.
Right. Yeah, and this is actually something that my parents did when I was a kid. I remember them being very cautious when I was little about me wearing shirts with my name on the back of it. I wasn't allowed to do that. Like I had to, if I wanted, when I was a kid, the airbrushed shirts were really popular. You remember you go to Gatlinburg and you get your airbrush t-shirt with your name on it. Well, I always had to get it done on the front of my shirt. I was never allowed to get my name airbrush on the back of my shirt. And I never understood this as a kid because I'm like, oh, my friends do it, but my parents didn't allow me. And then when I got my first car, I wanted to get like the personalized license plate or even the airbrushed, again, license plate on the front of my car. And my mom would not allow me to do that because she knew, and she told me, she said, because people will know your name and they can call you from across the parking lot, and if they see your car with your name on it. And so I wasn't allowed to do that as a kid either.
Yeah, that was very wise.
All right, so Jennifer, you had done some research on your own as well, and you had some really good information on things. And it's basically you need to watch out for people who circle around playgrounds, which is exactly what you experienced. He was a man circling around a playground without his own kid being there. And so we need to be aware of that. And it may not always be a man. It can be a woman. It can be.
It's the sad thing. They can even, these are the really awful cases, but they can get children. They can use other children to entice other children to get them to come here. It's sad about these perpetrators that they do kind of like brainwash even other children to get them to befriend and say, hey, I want to show you something over here. So you just really have to be fully aware of what's going on at all times as much as possible.
Right. And you also have to be aware that it can happen to your kid. Like, I think that we a lot of times have it can't happen to me. It can't happen to my kid. My kid would never do that. Or, I've talked to them a bunch of times. Well, yeah, that's what we're doing right now. We're talking. And I talked to my kids even yesterday about all this. But you better believe I'm going to revisit this and I'm going to talk about it again. That's not the last conversation that we're ever going to have about this.
Yeah. And even as they get older, you start to think, oh, they're getting old now. They understand. Oh, no. I'm still naive sometimes about could this actually happen? But definitely it's an active conversation to never put on a shelf.
Okay, so you talked about how adults even get kids involved with being able to do this to other kids. So what about peer pressure? Like, we think our kids are teenagers now. Well, yeah, but they're also in that peer pressure age to where they don't really want to say no to other kids because they want to be accepted.
And perpetrators, bank on that philosophy. So I guess one thing that jumped in my mind would be to remind your child that, you're never to go into somebody else's vehicle or get near it, even if another child wants to show you, quote unquote, something. Never.
Right.
Never.
My kids are big in the video games right now, and as I'm sure that every other teenager on the face of this planet is as well. But one of the things, of course, they like to play online with other people, and I'm probably a little bit overprotective. I'm not going to allow you to play with some other person who may or may not be an adult or may not be a kid.
Right.
And I don't like that at all. I don't like the feeling that it gives me when my kids are playing with someone, even though they're in their home and they're in their quote unquote safe place. It's still, they're still being vulnerable there. And I don't like that.
And they can develop false relationships that, that over time, your child can start to trust this person, quote unquote, that they're playing with, and then maybe be like, well, hey, I'm going to go get ice cream, at Brewster's later. Oops. Now they know where you are.
Right. Exactly. Yep. And one of the things that we talked about yesterday was if your neighbor comes up to you and says, hey, I got a new video game because he knows that you like video games. Well, you're a teenage boy. Like, what teenage boy doesn't like video games? It's kind of, it's kind of easy to kind of walk up to them and say, hey, and just talk about the latest video game. Chances are they're going to engage in that conversation with them. So even if your neighbor, like if one of our neighbors were to walk up and say, hey, I got this new video game. Would you like to come over and see it? Well, I know that my children would be like, heck yeah, I want to see that game, But no, we talked about how that is absolutely not going to happen. Like, you will not go over there and see their video game.
Right.
And we won't be
Yep.
inviting them to at our house to see our video games either because we don't know them.
Mm-mm. No, I have a rule about meeting like friends from school.
Hmm.
We always have to meet at a public park first, um, with the parents there,
Right.
and then develop a relationship. And then as I get more comfortable, I'm getting to know their parents and the child, whether or not will ever have a play date at home
Right.
or their home.
And
Definitely, sure.
right. And we've always had a rule that we have to know the parents in order for you to be able to
Yep.
do anything with them. And it's not,
Mhm.
hey, mom, here's Johnny's mom,
Mhm.
and,
No,
and okay, nice to meet you. Okay, now I'm going to let you go off with them. No, like we have to know them. It's not we have to be introduced to them. We have to
right.
know them before you can
Yeah.
actually go with them.
Hmm.
And I don't think we've
So important.
actually had any kind of an instance to where we've allowed my kids to go to somebody's house that we haven't actually visited their house before either.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we've actually really had that rule per se, but I think it's just kind of something that's happened, which is a really good rule to have, I think, hindsight on
Mhm.
that.
Yep.
So,
We are their protector. And sometimes I really trust the guidance of the Holy Spirit to
mm-hmm.
really instill in me if the situation feels okay. And part of that is meeting them and seeing how that feels and praying about it. If
Right,
there's ever a time that I'm not sure.
right, right. And we need to trust that. And, for anybody who is not a Christian and who is listening to this podcast, you have like this inner feeling like that. We always say that gut feeling or
It's a
whatever.
gut, yeah.
Yeah, that gut feeling. And you need to go with that. If something doesn't feel right, even if it looks perfect on the outside, and you can't even identify what doesn't feel right. If it
Hmm.
doesn't feel right, if you have that gut feeling,
Yeah.
then you need to pull back from that situation, not allow your kid to go, or you need to
Right.
leave and take your kid with you or whatever.
It was that very gut feeling that brought attention to this guy and me. It was just something like, you need to watch him. And there was like, and then I just started knowing details. And now I'm really thankful that I did listen to that gut feeling. You never know it. I mean, what do you have to lose by just being a little extra observant and cautious at that point? Once you've had that gut feeling, it's usually going to be the best outcome.
Right.
And you don't have anything to lose but keeping your child safer.
Right. So you said that you contacted.
Possibly a little embarrassment, but hey, if you were wrong, but okay, that's
Tr-
okay. I'll take it.
True, true. So you said you contacted the authorities when you saw this
Mhm.
happen, or you went and found security. How exactly did you do that, and who did you find? Like, who did you know to go to?
Well, I just popped up. I was like, how am I going to get a security officer here the fastest? I don't need to call. I didn't think calling 911 would be appropriate. So I just went to the closest kiosk. Like it was like a little pretzel. I just had the idea. They know how to get a security officer here rather quick. And she did. She just picked up a phone, said, I need security right now. And they came down immediately. I told them what was going on, that I felt like there was a man in there targeting small children, small little girls specifically, being inappropriate. And I just witnessed him put his hands in other people's belongings.
Wow. So did you see them come by? Like, what did they do?
Yeah, I actually talked to them before they surrounded him. So they wanted me to tell them what was going on, and so I did, and we were keeping him in the contact, which is crazy. I cannot believe this guy did not leave once I caught him. But I think he was thinking that he convinced everyone that I was the crazy one for
Mm,
accusing him of that, and so I'm the nutcase. And so I guess he thought it would be better to just continue to sit there, and I I just honestly, I'm grateful he just continued to sit there like an idiot, but he did. And I talked to the cop, and then I think he was calling back up, and then he entered the play area, and I think his other cop friend came too, and they surrounded him. And I do not know what happened from there.
yeah, you booked it out of there. I think I would too.
Yeah, I kind of was like, okay, my part is done. I'm feeling a little bit insecure. I'm going.
Right, right. Yeah. Right. Well, I think that's awesome that you felt confident enough to be able to do that, because I know that there are people who probably feel like, well, if I do that and I turn him in, then what if he, finds out who I am, or what if he follows me to the parking lot, or, because they probably did not arrest him. I mean, he didn't technically do anything wrong.
Yeah, it's my word against obviously
Right.
his, and I don't know if there would be a video camera. So
Mhm.
yeah, and he's probably convincing them I'm crazy. Um,
Mhm.
and later I thought, oh my gosh, you were bold, because like, what if he had a group watching, this go down? But luckily,
Right.
things
And that's
I'll think about next. And I hope never again, but it's things I need to be aware of next time.
right. Yeah, because obviously you want to be safe as well. But we don't need to let that fear kind of
Mm-mm.
run the fact, whether or not we try to protect another child.
No, because you never know what he could have reached in and got. He could have got her wallet, which would have had a lot of information in it,
Mhm.
um, like an address even.
Mhm.
And so, yeah,
Or a
I
school
just
paper or anything like that. He would
any
know what school she went to, and then he could follow her there.
yeah. So I just feel like, I don't know. I got a little boldness and absolute um, security about what I was doing. Like I felt 100% right in what I was doing by getting the authorities involved.
Mhm.
So.
Wow. That's just crazy. I can't imagine what I would do in that situation. I hope that I would rise up to the occasion just like you did. But
I think you
hopefully,
would. I definitely think you would.
yeah. Hopefully somebody will be hearing this podcast and they will be able to implement some of these things that we've, ideas that
Mhm.
we've given them in keeping their own kids safe, but also maybe even grow a heightened sense on being able to watch their surroundings to keep other kids safe as well.
Yeah, that's so important, because I was just noticing I revisited the same park just this week, and I also take care of another child, and I just was noticing, woo, was I divided trying to keep 3 children safe.
Mm.
Um, and they're everywhere, and so it is, yeah, so important to just also tuck in your mind, help others also.
Hmm.
Just be on the lookout,
Yeah, we
because
moms.
the mom's not just sitting there playing on their phones. They're, helping their children. I mean, there are some, but there's a lot of moms out there just trying to, and dads and caregivers. I don't mean to exclude anyone,
Hmm.
but it's hard, especially when
Yeah,
you have multiple children.
right. Right, and a lot of times we take them to the park or we take them to those play areas so we can have like a little bit of a break,
Yeah,
in a way, and kind of get them out of the house. There's probably a lot of cabin fever going on, when you
exactly.
have young kids at home, and so you think you're going there and you think you're being safe, and
Mhm.
sometimes a lot of parents will let their guard down because they think, okay, I'm going to go here. There's a lot of other parents around. There's a lot of other kids around that can occupy my kids, and I'm just going to sit here and just
Mhm.
breathe,
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no,
yeah.
yeah, that's exactly. That's exactly something I was kind of banking on by taking him to the mall that day. He'd already painted my walls with paint of some sort, coffee cream. Now I remember exactly, and I'm like, I cannot do this. We've got to
Hmm.
get out of here. Yeah, but it did not turn into the break I was hoping for.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
But it is true.
Well, Jennifer, this has been an amazing conversation with you, and I've actually loved just kind of talking with you because we never see each other.
I know.
No, but this has been great. Thank you so much for saying yes, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you sharing your story. I appreciate you being here, and hopefully this will help. If we can help at least one parent, at least one child, then I feel like we have done our job. So thank you again for saying yes.
You are so welcome. I'm so glad to do it. So, thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. So something else that I want to add to this conversation, and if you've been listening for a while, you will know that this is true. We are a scouting family. And in fact, my son just completed and received his Eagle Scout rank in September. Woohoo! But something that we practice in Boy Scouts is something called youth protection training. And this is where every registered adult, parent, and leader have to take a specific training on how to keep our scouts and kids safe. We have a lot of rules and regulations set up to keep our children safe. And one of the big ones is absolutely no one-on-one contact between adults and children. This means that we always have to have what we call a two-deep leadership when it comes to any activity that we do. This allows there to never be a time when our scouts are alone with any adult. It's always a good idea to practice this in your own family as well. Whenever you need someone to pick up your child, have it be someone who is already picking up their own child, or at least someone who will have multiple people in the car with them for accountability's sake. A pedophile is less likely to be able to do anything when there are potential witnesses. So anyone can take this youth protection training course offered from Boy Scouts of America. You do not need to be a registered leader with this organization in order to take advantage of this training. All you need to do is follow the link that I have provided in our show notes, and this training can be a great resource for you and your family, your company, any organization for that matter. Also available is a parent's guide on how to protect your children from child abuse. This is the guide that I referenced in the podcast. This guide is a great additional resource by providing you with information along with some tips for talking with your child about child abuse. It also contains a section with exercises for you to share with your child. Research shows that children whose parents talk to them about preventing abuse are better able to protect themselves and are more likely to tell someone if they are abused. So go over to our website, check out the links in our show notes, and take the youth protection training course. You will be so glad you did. If you like Tea of Life podcast and you have two friends who want to create the life that they love to live, tell them about us. Find us on your favorite social media platform like Facebook or Instagram. Also, right now before you forget, go to Apple Podcast or Google Play and search for Tea of Life podcast. Hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode. Thank you for listening to Tea of Life podcast.